Hi everyone, this is Ghalib and you're watching me on YouTube. Ali Dawah is one of the most, arrogant type of Muslim preachers out there. He tries to make fun of people. He calls them names. But when we try to assess his arguments on merit, we see that he has nothing. He has a very superficial understanding of things that he discusses. He has the kind of impression that I get is that he has learned some arguments by heart. He never wants to talk about Islam and the most serious objections against Islam. He always wants to discuss God or all these philosophical things about evolution or existence of God. He doesn't understand science, and he uses the arguments that were brought forward by Christian apologists, and he uses one of the most, ancient arguments for the existence of God, and I have a kind of feeling that he seriously does not understand the philosophical arguments that he's usually presenting. So he's seriously overrated and maybe kind of a clown that has become popular. Even a lot of Muslim apologists are not happy with him. And he is always, kind of creating a facade around himself where he's very confrontational and he is kind of on jihad when even when he's talking, and he's not talking in a way which educates people, but rather in a way where he tries to prove that he's better than the other side, and this is what he does. His recent discussion with apostate prophet was a disaster, on which even many Muslim apologists are even ashamed of that discussion that he did. That was basically a clown show, and he truly exposed himself there. But I came across one video of him that is on a Muslim apologist channel that is known as Towards Eternity. The video is titled Ali Dawah Answered the Toughest Atheism Questions Only in 1 minute. So this is the video where there is a dramatic music playing in the background and there are two guys who are asking him questions. I've put the link to this video in the description of this video that you can watch that video. And I'm going to discuss some of the arguments that he presented in answer to those questions that were asked of him. And basically, this is not some atheist who is asking him questions. It kind of only gives the impression that some atheists are asking him tough questions. And in the end, these guys tell that these guys are Muslims. And the kind of questions that they chose are not the toughest questions that atheists are going to ask a Muslim or even ask about the existence of God or non-existence of God. And secondly, in the title, it is mentioned that each question was answered in 1 minute, but that is also a lie. He answered only a few questions in 1 minute, but he took a lot more than a minute to answer the rest of the questions. So the first question that these guys asked him was, can you prove existence of God in 1 minute? And he starts saying that there is Google, and the reason for Google is computers, and computers are created by human beings and this and that. So he says that for the existence of Google, there is an infinite chain of causes that caused Google. And in the end, he says that this infinite regress of causes needs to be solved, and it can only be solved by the existence of a necessary, self-sufficient, independent entity that is known as God. And he's discussing, this is basically a Christian argument of this necessary being, and this Muslim is like blindly copying it. On the other hand, he doesn't believe in Christianity, but they are so shameless that they are always using the arguments by Christians. So he's saying that in order for the universe to exist or for us to exist, it is absolutely necessary that an intelligent entity that has created everything should exist. But that is a fallacy of epic proportions, because today human beings exist, and the cause of our existence is evolution. And evolution is not a sentient entity. It is not conscious. It is a process that is very effective and produces, remarkable results in the end. And for the existence of universe, we have no way of knowing that what caused the universe. We don't know the cause of the universe. Maybe in the future, science will discover what caused the universe, what was the cause behind the universe. But till now, we don't know what caused the universe. Was the cause of the universe internal to the universe? That is also a big debate. There are some scientific hypotheses out there that are, namely eternal inflation and some others, that can say that Big Bang was one of the events that can cause things to come into existence. But the other problem is we have no way of knowing that what caused the Big Bang and if what caused the Big Bang was sentient or not. If it was whatever caused the universe, there is more than enough evidence in the universe that, an unintelligent random process like evolution can make intelligent human beings. So it is not necessary that if you see something very organized, systematic somewhere, it should be caused by intelligence. It is not necessary. And evolution is the example of this. And these guys always talk about outside the universe. So we don't know if there is an outside the universe, or if there is an outside the universe, what is that outside? And if the same rules of logic and philosophy apply to that outside or not. So that is a big question. And no one can emphasize on that, or no one can insist on that the same rules of logic or causality are going to apply to something that is not part of this universe. That is a great leap of faith, and only believers can take that great leap of faith. So if infinite regress is a paradox, it is not the atheist or the agnostic that is trying to arrive at some conclusions because of the infinite regress of causes. It is the theist that wants to arrive at a conclusion, and at the final end point of that conclusion, they just insist that the cause is their God. Because paradoxes cannot give you logical conclusions. That is paradoxes 101. Paradoxes only raise questions. They don't give you answers. When someone tries to conclude something on the basis of some paradox, that person is actually committing a logical fallacy of epic proportions. And this is what Ali Dawah is doing here. If something caused the universe, can we say that that cause was sentient, self-sufficient, and necessary? We have no way of knowing that, because our laws of logic break down at the onset of the universe, and there's no way of knowing that they apply beyond this universe, or if there is a beyond this universe. So we have no evidence that and today in our universe, we have evidence that non-sentient and non-conscious causes can cause significant chain of events and even result in intelligence like human intelligence in the end. So non-intelligent processes can result in intelligence in the end. So we cannot say that whatever caused the universe might be intelligent, because a river can cut the mountain, and the river and the mountain both are not intelligent. So whatever caused the universe, if universe is not intelligent, then it might also not be intelligent. There is a possibility for that. But the problem with theists like Ali Dawah, or the people who have lack of understanding like Ali Dawah, they would never want to see the other side of the picture, and they would try to impose their God on those logical conclusions which don't lead to where they want them to go. So then the next question is, what can't the necessary being, why can't the necessary being be the universe? So he says the universe is not self-sufficient and is dependent. And that is why we believe there is one self-sufficient being who is independent and necessary. So I've already answered rebutted his answer in the previous question. So the existence of universe only needs a cause. The cause doesn't need to be sentient or conscious. So that's the result here. And that cause can also be, an effect of something that is not sentient and conscious. So the infinite regress is a possibility, and it's happening maybe. But to arrive at the conclusion that the infinite regress terminates as something that is conscious and eternal and self-sufficient, that is a huge leap of faith. And that is just a belief. That is not something that you can arrive through logic or science at. Then the third question is, God created everything. Who created God? And he says the question is invalid. He says, can God create? Then he goes to this, that can God create a rock that God himself cannot lift? And can God cease to exist? And he says all of these questions are invalid. So when we ask that who created God, because if universe cannot be self-created and it is created by someone, so that is basically the basic causality of our universe, that everything requires a cause to happen. But the problem is that if the universe requires a cause to exist, then doesn't that cause require a cause to exist? And the cause that caused the universe require a cause? So that there is this infinite regression. Then again, it's a paradox. But the problem is, this guy is again trying to arrive at a conclusion from a paradox. And to avoid the question that God also needs a creator, he just says that the question is invalid. He thinks that this question is unnecessary. So again, this guy and many other theists like him try to deduce results from paradoxes. But the problem is, paradoxes don't give you answers. Paradoxes only make you arrive at a conclusion. And the only thing that can give you an answer about a paradox would be the answer to that paradox. And we have no way of knowing that what caused the universe, or is there an infinite regress of causes, or can we deduce something from that infinite regress of causes? Because our causality, our reasoning, our cause and effect, it is confined to the physical existence. The laws of causality that we know today are confined to not only our logic, but our physical existence. And it is physical existence that has given us these laws of causality. It is not logic that has given us the cause and effect, the laws of cause and effect. It is the physical reality of this universe which has made us arrive at the conclusion that cause and effect is a real thing. And we have incorporated it into logic and philosophy. So cause and effect in reality is based on scientific observation and principles of this universe. And the principle of cause and effect makes it impossible for anything that violates this law to be logical. So to escape this question, the fallacy that Ali Dawah and many other theists commit is they just use cause and effect to disprove what science says, but they want to, discard cause and effect when it comes to their God. So then he says, then the next question is, why Islam when there are many other religions? So then he gives an answer. Young kids believe in one God. True monotheism is only in Islam. Quran is the only scripture that is preserved. So he says that young kids, there is a psychological study that he refers, and he says that young kids, when they are not even taught about God or about mythological entities, they tend to believe in one God. So the problem is, the belief of a kid is not proof of anything, because everyone is superstitious. There are, there are some personal superstitions that I would hold, and Ali Dawah would hold, and everyone would hold. But is that proof of something? No, that's not. You know, wearing a red scarf on an exam day, one can think that it is going to bring good luck for them, but it has no value when it comes to causality. It cannot be proved that red scarf would make you attempt a question paper better on that day. No, it does not. So then he says that true monotheism is only in Islam, and that is also a lie. Judaism is also true monotheism, and many other religions in the world have been monotheistic faiths. Quran is the only scripture that is preserved. That is a huge lie, and that I can discuss in a separate video, because according to the Islamic traditional sources, Quran is not preserved. There are many verses that were left out from the Quran, like the verse of Rajam, or stoning of an adulterer and adulteress to death. That is not included in Quran today, and many hadith report on that this is not part of Quran today. So this is a leap of faith to say that a kid believing in God is proof that there is a God. There's no proof for this. This does not prove anything. So then the next question is, can you please tell us about miracles of the Quran? So then he says that Abu Lahab could have converted and proved God wrong at any time, because in Quran it is said that Abu Lahab and his wife are going to face eternal damnation in hell. But the Surah Abu Lahab, or Surah Masad of Quran, its opening verses say that may the hands of Abu Lahab be broken. But the problem is Abu Lahab's hands were never broken. So Quran says, Quran pleads, Quran curses him that his hands would be broken, but his hands are never broken. So this means that this book is not from God, but only from Muhammad. Muhammad felt powerless, and at one point in his weakness, he cursed him that may your hands be broken. But you know, if this curse was from God, his hands should have been broken at once. That never happened. So this proves the Surah Masad and the same Surah Abu Lahab that he's referring to, from another point, you know, also proves that God is there. This book is not from God. It's a very comical verse of Quran, where God is like cursing like some weak person who cannot, you know, take revenge himself, but rather curses a person. So this is what he's doing. Then the second miracle of Quran, he says that Allah talks about Yusuf. Allah talks about the time of Yusuf in Egypt, and he says that the ruler at that time is the king. But at the time of the Moses, the ruler is known as the Pharaoh. And then he says that the Rosetta Stone that was discovered shows that at the time of Joseph, the ruler was known as king, but at the time of Moses, the ruler was known as Pharaoh. And he tries to say, and then he goes to compare it with Bible, and he says that in Bible, both the places at the time of Joseph and the time of Moses, the ruler of Egypt is known as Pharaoh. The problem is both Moses and Joseph are fictional characters. They are legends. The Israelites were never in Egypt. And there is no evidence for Joseph anywhere in Egypt. Egyptians have recorded their history absolutely, you know, it's brilliant how they have recorded their history. And there's no mention of Joseph or Moses. And, you know, the Quran saying that at the time of Joseph it was the king, and at the time of Moses it was Pharaoh, it's just a fallacy. It proves nothing, because we have never got any kind of evidence for that. But on the other hand, you know, the scholars who do textual criticism of Quran, they say that maybe the story of Joseph was already a poem that pre-existed Quran in Arabia. And that story was just incorporated into the Quran. So if that story, that poetry is saying that the ruler was the king, so that is not actually the true word of God even. So there is a lot of confusion going on there, and we have reasons to believe that different portions of Quran come from different sources and were not even produced by Prophet Muhammad. There are clues in the Islamic traditional narrative even that prove this. So then he says that Romans and Persians in Quran, that Persians has defeated the Romans and the Romans would overcome the Persians again in 7 or 10 years. So many people predicted after the Second World War that America would win the Cold War. And their prediction has become true. So can we say that those people are gods? And if they're true and they cannot be considered as gods, then why should Muhammad and Quran be considered as a prophet and the book coming from God? We have no reason to that. Because people do make calculations, and there is a chance that those calculations become true, and especially when it is a binary choice, it is either one or the other, then there is a 50-50 chance of one thing becoming true. So this is what has happened most probably in the case of Quran. And secondly, there is also a historical debate on that as well. So all of these verses in the Quran come much later, after 622, when Heraclius defeated the Persians. And the problem is the Quran was the first copies or the first verses of Quran only start to appear somewhere around 690. Not before 622, but around 690. So this prediction in the Quran is most probably constructed much later. So it's not a prophecy, but rather, a claim of a prophecy, nothing more than that. Then the next question is, you believe in God. So scientists could not figure out, but you could. So here the question is that scientists don't arrive at the conclusion of existence of God. How come you have arrived at that conclusion? So then he says science only deals with what it can see. Science does not talk about the supernatural. It stops at the physical. But the problem is there is no evidence for any supernatural. There is no metaphysical world. There is no supernatural world. There is no throne of God anywhere. Give us the proof and we will believe. But the problem is Ali Dawah or Allah or Muhammad or Jesus or Bible can never give any kind of proof for any kind of supernatural. There is no testable theory of supernatural that can be tested and we can say that it is true or not. Then he arrives at the biggest fallacy of this conversation, and he says dark matter cannot be seen, heard, felt, smelled, tasted and touched, but it is still believed. And then he says that you cannot see God, but you reject his existence, but you cannot also see dark matter, but you believe in its existence. And then he says that the same thing with dark matter, but you say dark matter exists. Why do you have double standards, he says. So the problem is no one believes that dark matter is a reality if we don't have any evidence for it. Let's say tomorrow we have some evidence that disproves dark matter. The scientific community will agree on that. There is a falsifiability and testability criteria for dark matter. And if dark matter fails that criteria, people will not believe in dark matter. People are not killing one another for dark matter. It is not a matter of belief. There are no believers in dark matter. People believe that it might exist. But when the evidence contrary to that would be available, people are going to reject dark matter. And if we get evidence for the existence of dark matter, then people are going to believe about it. There is loop quantum gravity and there is, modified gravity, that there are theories out there that try to explain what the standard model explains as dark matter in an alternative way. So both of these things have falsifiability criteria, and both of these have testability as well. So if either of these things is proven wrong or proven right, then the scientific community is going to change their mind. People don't see dark matter and people don't absolutely believe in it either. People are open to accept another explanation for what is happening in the universe than dark matter. So, and that is not present for your God. Then he says Einstein believed in God. Scientists do believe in God. That is why Einstein believed in God is known as his belief, not as his science. So there is a difference between science and belief. Science is testable, falsifiable, provable. It can be substantiated through evidence and observation and experimentation. But God cannot be proven through, these things. And Einstein gave no testable and falsifiable postulates for the existence of God. If he would have given, then we would have tested those, So that's why it's known as his belief. And Einstein's science and his belief are not equally respectable. So we will definitely reject one and accept the other, because his science is not based on his intuition or his belief. It is based on his mathematics and his reasoning and his theories, which are testable, which have evidence. That's why we give more respect to them, and we wouldn't give any kind of respect to his beliefs. Then the next question is, are you brave enough to talk with famous atheists? What would you do if you encountered them? So then he dodges the questions, and he says that he's willing to talk to any atheist. And he says that, but atheism is illogical and minimum deism is logical. So the problem is, Ali Dawah is always running away from atheists. He was running away from apostate prophet. He did not talk to him about Islam. He only wants to talk with atheists about existence of God, using the arguments that were presented by Christian apologists. And I know that he would never want to talk with any ex-Muslim or atheist about Islamic slavery or the character of Prophet Muhammad or the wars of Prophet Muhammad or all these moral problems in Islam. In fact, none of these Muslim apologists that we see on YouTube or other media want to talk with any ex-Muslim or atheist about the problems in Islam. They would gladly discuss, existence of God, because it's a problem that has been worked very hard upon by the Christian apologists. And it is their work that they always quote. But in the field of Islam, they have to work themselves. They have to work hard to, even arrive at some arguments. So they have none there. And then when he says that minimum deism is logical, this is a very confined way of looking at it. You provide me with evidence of God, and I would believe in him. But the evidence needs to be testable, of the same sort that you demand for the theory of evolution or other scientific facts. Then we will say that his argument about existence or non-existence of God has any weight. So then there is another question, and looking at all of these questions, you can see that these guys who were, from the channel Towards Eternity, they are both Muslims. They are Muslims, and these were the questions that were already picked out for Ali Dawah. We know that. That can be seen. We know that. So the last question is, if there is infinite time, why not infinite possibilities? So the question's meaning was that if there is infinite time, can something that is considered impossible become possible? So he says that an infinite amount of time, anything can happen is a fallacy. The equation of time is irrelevant. So we can say that infinite amount of time, anything can happen is a fallacy, and he says that. But the problem is, we don't need to look into philosophy to see what can happen in a certain amount of time, because we only had 4.6 billion years on this earth. And he gives an example of a glass. He drinks the water, tries to act like a clown, and then he says that, okay, if I want to create some sweet thing in this glass and I wait for eternity, will this glass be filled with that sweet dessert? And that is also a fallacy. Why? Because the problem is our universe proves that intelligent human beings can come into existence because of extremely unintelligent or, non-conscious, non-sentient causes. So the evolution of life creates intelligence in the end. But that is not something that you can say, impossible. Because the same glass or the same sweet in that glass is immediately created by something intelligent, by a human being. But the problem is that human being, if you go further back in time, you keep just going back in time, about 550 million years ago, you will come to a point where single cellular organisms were converting into multicellular organisms. And you would go back in time enough, and 2.3 billion years ago, there were only microorganisms on this planet. And those microorganisms, through the unintelligent process of evolution, created sentient species, intelligent species, that in turn created, a glass and a sweet in it. So the answer here is that once this unintelligent process of evolution creates an intelligent entity, and that intelligent entity creates something that is impossible to be created through random chance, the thing has already become possible. But these guys just play a fallacy. They say that things in universe, if there is no creator or things do not require a creator, then things should just abruptly, absolutely complex things, just come out of existence abruptly. But that is not the case that our universe shows us. Our universe says that very simple things evolve into things that are a little more complex than them, and those result in further complexity, and over the course of time, complexity increases so much, and the framework of complexity becomes so complex that most complex things become absolutely possible, become absolutely certain. So it is not basically, infinite time that makes some complex thing to come into existence, but rather it is the very nature of a complex system that makes complexity arrive, make something complex come into existence. So a very simple system would never be able to give rise to something extremely complex. First, that simple system would have to evolve into a complex system, and then the extremely complex thing would come into existence. So when there was only hydrogen in the universe or plasma in the universe, there was no questions of human beings coming into existence. The question of human beings coming into existence only becomes valid and becomes absolutely possible after 13.8 billion years of existence of this universe, when life on planet Earth evolves into such a state where it is able to create extremely large brains which are able to reason analytically, and then and only then you are able to create a glass in which you are able to create a dessert. So the very unintelligent processes, through extremely unintelligent processes, The universe has created complexity, and that complexity that has created something extremely impossible, but that extremely impossible thing is absolutely possible when through the evolution of complexity in the universe. So the question is not time. The question is the level of complexity that exists in our universe. So this is what he said, and these were his 10 questions, and all of his answers were, illogical, fallacious, and outright blatant lies. But I have deconstructed whatever he said, and hopefully you liked it. Before you go, do like the video. You can subscribe to the channel, and you can also support me on Patreon. Thank you very much for watching. This is Ghalib Kamal signing out. Bye-bye. If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe and click on the bell icon to enable all notifications. You can also support me on Patreon with just $3 a month.